Well, I feel incredibly honoured to be here. I've just fled the previous meeting, the Ian Potter Foundation. I mean, they can give out their millions and I'll make sure a lot of it comes to Aboriginal issues if I can. I'd just like to thank Auntie Di. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Wurundjeri country, and what you said was very moving indeed. I think if you think about 1835, the most rapid colonisation ever on the planet occurred here. And the ramifications of that are in this report today. So I feel incredibly honoured to actually be here in front of you and to acknowledge people like Pat Anderson, Lowitja O'Donoghue, Ian, all of the work that you guys have done. And also the Lancet. You've done the most extraordinary things. Two of the areas, once you get in the Lancet with something like this, things happen. I'm thinking particularly of your stillbirth series and the series on child protection. And you might not know, but that Ruth Gilbert and I are now international collaborators because of that Lancet series. And we've now got an 8-country comparisons of child protection going on because of the Lancet. So once you get in the Lancet with this kind of publication, I was going to say magic happens, but we need magic. We need more than magic. And I think it's been fantastic that you have been part of this partnership. Ian, this is a magnificent effort. It's a huge effort. The most important thing is this global partnership of 65 people. And I hope that this, as you said, Steph, will be the first of many things, not just Lancet articles, but a whole lot of activities can stem from these 65 groups that you've got as part of this. And the Lowitja to have with Ian, have pioneered this is fantastic. And I presume that things like, you know, the United Nations and WHO could well take note of these findings in this report and start to do things like funding it and so on. So I do think, I hope very much that this is the beginning of a major international collaboration, because international studies are really important and they're very powerful. And that's because they're a huge amount of work, but they're really, really important to do. Ian's looking sweaty and tired. But because the Nazi population in Australia realise, once they go global, that they're part of a very large, over 300 million, and probably counting, Indigenous population in the world. That's a very, very big group of people. So when you think of, you know, not even 1 million Aboriginal people in Australia, but you're part of 300 million, that does a lot for how you feel about being Aboriginal, about being Indigenous, that you're not alone, that there is an international group of people who share this kind of stories with you. And it also demonstrates to me that the problems that we're seeing, which are so common in all these countries, are not Aboriginal. They are the result of the colonisation and invasion, the marginalisation, the discrimination, the racism, the 1835 debacle, the stolen generation, the removal of culture. That's what this is about. It's not Aboriginal. It's only Aboriginal because Aboriginal people have had that pattern. If we'd had that pattern, we'd be there too. And I think we've just got to keep remembering that. So this document is incredibly important. Now, whilst you talk in your papers about the fact we can't compare because they're singular measures, and the measures are really, really terrific. So we've got life expectancy, infant mortality rate, maternal deaths, low birth weight, and then children who have high birth weight, and there are various reasons that might be pathological, but some of them are good. And underweight children aged 2 to 4 years, malnourished children, and then obese children, kids who are overweight, adults who are overweight, adults who attained year 12, and households with incomes that are lower than some national average in each country. Now, not every country, as Bridget said, has got all this information, and in fact the Cameroon's only got 2 bits of information. But on the whole, the countries that are wealthiest, and they've divided the analysis into sort of really wealthy countries, sort of middle-income countries and poor countries, but a lot of these countries have the complete ascertainment of data. And whilst you don't want to sort of benchmark, you want to benchmark. You know, you do want to compare us. Which countries are doing better than us and why? That's really important from these kind of international analyses, and this document means you can start doing that. The pathways here are clear, even though they're not linked together. If you start off with poverty and poor education, you have low birth weight. You have then children who are underweight and then overweight and then can't get educated and then become poor. So you do have these cycles that are in these data very, very clearly. These are as clear as Jock Caldwell's information, which you'll remember, Richard Madden, way back in the 30s and 40s, where he just showed that maternal education linked to under 5 mortality, international comparisons, and that's still true today. So you can get so much out of these data, even though they're not linked and even though they're just looking at them as singular measures to be compared. And the stories aren't good. And they're not good for countries like Australia and New Zealand. They're not good. They're not good stories. We want these stories to be better. We don't want these cycles of deprivation that we really should have done something about time and time and time again. And so I like these cross-country comparisons because I think we can get something out of them. And I think what is very clear is we can see the social and economic determinants, as you said in the discussion, and the need for strength in culture and power and leadership, the things, Ian, that you're talking about. We haven't any excuses now. How many Aboriginal graduates have we got? We've got parity with medical student intake, right, Jim? We're doing well. No excuse not to have Aboriginal people running the show, running the analyses, influencing what data are collected, influencing how they should impact on policy and practice and everything else. I'm getting goosebumps. This is so exciting that we've now got this Aboriginal capacity that I've been privileged to be part of building up, and I think it's just fabulous. So what we now have to do is get more and better data. This is very clear from this publication that we need more countries to get better data. I've always lived my life is that if you've got data, you've got power, you've got knowledge, you can influence. And I hope that that's still the case in this government. Anyway, yes, and good things are happening. It's never been a better time to be something or other in this country. But anyway. And we need better identification of Indigenous status in our data sets. And Aboriginal people many years ago, there were some, in fact, in Canada, there are some tribes who do not want to be noted even in the census. But there's been a change now. Indigenous people realise that by getting Indigenous ascertainment and notification, and the ABS has led some great stuff on this, as has other places like our institute, that if you get that better identification of Aboriginal people in data sets, then you've got power. You have got power to make a difference. And we need more Aboriginal people who we can bring up to speed with analysing these data and telling us what we need to do and how we need to do it. So I think that what this study, this incredible international comparison says for me is that we are making a case here, even without any more elegant analyses or other studies or sophisticated record linkage and interpretation. You have enough data here for all governments at all levels to change, to invest wisely in at-sea leadership and controlled, Aboriginal controlled solutions. And the reason that we have failed over multiple times to implement services that are effective for Aboriginal people is that we haven't got Aboriginal people running the show. Aboriginal people know what to do. They have the solutions, and it is really, really important that we give them that power. And I don't know why we don't. It just seems to me so self-evident. So it's with enormous honour and whatever humility and all the rest of it, for me to launch this incredible Lancet study, Indigenous and Tribal People's Health, the Lancet-Lowitja Institute Global Collaboration, a population study by Ian Anderson, Bridget Robson, et al. And the et al. is just the longest list of wonderful people that you've managed to get together. Thank you very much.